Welcome to the video. Some of this will be new and some will be updates to things I've shown before. I'm going to start with the 1611 King James Bible, which I believe the Rosicrucians had a hand in producing and left clues indicating as such. I'd heard there were Francis Bacon and Masonic codes, but to my knowledge I thought I was the first to look for anything to do with Edward de Vere. Later I learned Alan Green had searched the frontispieces, and you can see what he found on his YouTube channel called the Bard Code. The first thing I found in the Bible was on the opening page in the dedication to King James. Everything centers around the decorated letter G. G is the Masonic character for God. Notice how the page has been typeset. The opening section to the top of the G is 40 words. This indicates Edward de Vere as 4T. Watching Alexander Waugh's videos, I learned that Edward de Vere was the fourth T, and 4T is a homophone of 40. So this represents Vere. And lastly, the page is typeset into two sections, divided by the bottom of the letter G. From the top of the page to the bottom of the letter are 17 lines. The indentation stops, and from the bottom of the G to the end of the page are 19 lines. Applying the letter values of the 23-letter Latin alphabet that the Shakespeare codes use, 17 is equal to the letter R and 19 is equal to T. T or tau is a cross, and RT are initials that stand for Rosy Cross. I believe this shows that God, Vere, and Rosy Cross were intentionally typeset into the page. The same message was encoded 3 times on the cover of the Sonnets explained in video 40. And in the section with the letter G, God, Vere, and Rose can be found 3 times, explained in video 41. I've shown this before, but I have an update. In the Sonnets, there's a dot or point next to the numbers 9, 10, the turnover or 18, and 122. These translate to gematria values. I explained exactly how it's done in the first video, but when everything's translated, the results are Y, I, H, I, O, R, and K, I. Yehi or is Hebrew and means fiat lux, or let there be light, which are God's first spoken words in Genesis. The remaining letters, Ro Ki, I thought stood for either Rose Cross or read right to left Kiro, the first 2 letters of Christos. Ever since I posted this, there was pushback because the letter K, kappa in Greek, is not Chi or Ki, meaning X. My argument was that in Greek, Ki and X both have the same pronunciation, Ki, and since this is God speaking, saying let there be light, these letters are meant to be pronounced, either in your mind or out loud. When you do that, you get Yehi or Ro Ki, meaning let there be light, Rosy Cross. Still, some were not convinced, so let me show you the cross. Again, we have letters spelling fiat lux in Hebrew. The or is the only word that doesn't come from a gematria value. It's from a catchword at the end of the page and is shared by both sets of numbers on either side of it. The last 2 sonnet numbers are 10 and 9, and where I got the Ki from because 10 is equal to K and 9 is equal to I. Though Ki is pronounced the same way as Ki, the Greek letter for X, to get the cross, we add these last 2 sonnet numbers together. 9 and 10 is 19, and the gematria value of 19 is T, or tau, which, like the letter X, is a cross. Again, even though Ki has the same pronunciation as X in Greek, we add the numbers 10 and 9 and get 19, equal to T. So we have Yehi or, then Ro, and the last 2 sonnet numbers in the code equal to 19, or T. This translates to let there be light, RT, initials for Rosy Cross, the same as the dedication page of the Bible. Regarding the code and the marked sonnet numbers, I hope this satisfies the non-believer and shows why those specific sonnet numbers and the turnover or were printed with dots. It also proves that the Shakespeare codes use the 23-letter Latin alphabet, because Y is the 22nd letter only in that alphabet. Some claim that the 24-letter alphabet is used, but if that was the case, the 22nd letter would be X, spelling Xihi, which is wrong. Maybe Francis Bacon used 24 letters later on, but in the Sonnets, John Dee used the Latin alphabet of 23 letters. Now in Monas Hieroglyphica, Dee explains, in addition to the Kabbalistic method of gematria, he also uses Notericon and Zeruf. Using Notericon, we take the first letters of each of the marked sonnets and the or turnover, giving us the letters ISFTOR. Then, applying Zeruf, which creates anagrams, we unscramble the letters and get F Rosi T, meaning Fratres Rosicrucis, or Fraternity of the Rosy Cross. These FRT initials are found at the beginning of the first sonnet. Apply Zeruf again, and the letters spell 4 T's. Edward de Vere is 40 or 4T. I figured out that using gematria, both 4 T's and the name Oxford have the same value, and with gematria there's a similarity between things of equal value. I believe this is one reason why 4 T's or 4T is a reference to Edward de Vere. Though the last two sonnet numbers 10 and 9 add to 19, providing us with the cross, I still think their individual gematria values are part of the code. Like I explained, 10's equal to K and 9's equal to I, spelling Ki, pronounced key. I know it's not CHI, the Greek letter X, but read right to left, it's still pronounced as Kiro, the first two letters of Christos. Genesis 1:3 reads, "And God said, let there be light, and there was light." For Christians, that light is Jesus. Christos is pronounced the same whether the first letter is spelled Ki or Chi. Understood this way, it means the marked sonnet numbers are also a God, Vere, and Rosy Cross code. Alright, we just saw a Rosicrucian Let There Be Light code, and there's another that uses Oxford cipher 1740 on page 1 of Genesis. After God says, "Let there be light," there are 17 lines to the end of the column, followed by 40 lines to the end of the page. The page ends with the word over, which has a comma printed above the O. The comma is a hint at an accent because an O spelled with an accent means of. In French, of is de. Over or of Vere in French is de Vere. Since this is the last word on the page, I believe it's like a signature, letting us know that Edward de Vere was a part of the King James Bible. The frontispiece has 3 examples of 1740, including an offset OT representing the Rosy Cross, which I also found in the Sonnets dedication grid, and I believe maybe in the Royal Society portrait of Francis Bacon. The first page of the dedication to King James is typeset to God, Vere, and Rosy Cross, and the first page of Genesis, after God says, "Let there be light," there are 17 lines followed by 40, ending with de Vere's name. I believe these codes and typesettings indicate that the Rosy Cross were involved in the production of the book. If you've been following these videos, you know that I've mentioned something referred to as twice 11 or twice 11 brethren. I first found it as an acrostic in the book of Job, chapter 42, and thought it might be referring to a group or secret society. I posted it in video 14, and soon after received a comment from Sean O'Donovan that the word brethren, single spelling, appears in the plays of the Folio a total of 22 times. More twice 11 codes would be found, and I thought that the name twice 11 brethren had been typeset in the Bible to be read as an acrostic message. A possible twice 11 code is in the Folio's dedication. After the words "to the most noble," there are 22 letters before the word brethren. To the most noble, twice 11 brethren. I think the page might also be read as a dedication to Oxford, which I explain in video 28. And Ron Raphael also discusses the epistle in his video Orphans and Guardians of Shakespeare's First Folio. Something new I've just found is in the Folio's To the Reader poem. Previously, I've suggested twice 11 codes that use the TWO comma acrostic. This figure, comma, is 11 characters, and with the 2 acrostic forms the shape of a Mason square. From the start of the poem to the BI initials are 11 lines, and the gematria value of BI is 11. These 3 examples of 11 work with the 2 acrostic, and 211 is twice 11, or 22. Turns out there's a lot more here focused within the lines of the poem. Ever is an anagram of Vere and a short form of Vere, and counting from the end of the poem, ever is word 17, Edward de Vere's Earl number. Others may have already figured that out, but there's a code that uses the 22nd word from the start of the poem. Counting from the beginning, word 22 is TO, the first word in to outdo. These are homophones of a couple French words. If we pronounce the 2 O's together in to out, it becomes a single word, tout, which in French means all, but it's also a homophone of the English pronunciation of the number 2, and deux in French, deux, is the actual word for 2. 2 deux is 22, or 22. In addition to the 22 reference, I think there's another message hidden here. Including the rest of the line, there are 17 characters, again Edward de Vere's Earl number. In French, the life is la vie. V, of course, is a homophone of the letter V, and since de Vere sometimes signed his name double V, I think tout de la vie, or simply tout de vie, translates to all double V. Okay, so the 22nd word, to, leads to homophones of 22 or twice 11, and also what I think could be a 17-character message that, when translated, refers to Edward de Vere. Notice before it reads, with nature. The poem is referring to the engraving of William Shakespeare on the next page. If we think of nature as the essence of or the force that produces something, then the engraving of William Shakespeare is being defined with a nature, all Edward de Vere. People have speculated about why this W is the only letter along the interior acrostic that's not capitalized. I think I recall reading that the lowercase was used because a capital W wouldn't fit, but that's not true at all. If you look on the right, you'll see that a capital W fits perfectly and doesn't upset the aesthetic. So I think they used the lowercase w to draw attention to the line. I'm going to be returning to the poem later in the video because there's something really interesting hidden here. But there's more I have to get to first. Alright, now one of the first things I found when I started looking for twice 11 codes was in Sonnet 121. Twice 11 can be 11 plus 11 equal to 22, or 11 times 11, which is 121. And in Sonnet 121, on line 11, we find this. It begins with an acrostic spelling TWIS, pronounced as twice. After the word twice, we count 11 letters. The 11th letter begins an anagram using the words vile then, which unscrambled is 11th. So 11 times 11 is 121. In Sonnet 121, on line 11, is an acrostic spelling the word twice. 11 letters after twice is an anagram spelling 11th. I do not think this happened by chance. And there's more. The words in between twice and 11th are also part of the code. First, I'll explain to be. I've shown before how to, to, is a homophone of the number 2, and b, BE sounds like the letter B, the second letter of the alphabet with a gematria value of 2. So 2B is 2-2. Now for the word better. In the Monas, D says he uses Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. The Hebrew word for the number 2 is bet, and in Latin, ter, T-E-R, is thrice. It's also the combining form put at the beginning of a word meaning the number 3. Looking at everything, bet is 2, ter is 3, 2b is 2-2, and vile then is an anagram of 11th. Added together, 2, 3, 2, 2, and 11 equals 20. Then there's the acrostic at the beginning spelling twice. Twice 20 is Edward de Vere's code number 40. Hidden within this twice 11 code is 40, a reference to Edward de Vere. There's something else about this sonnet which I'll explain later, but I want to show how I think Sonnet 22 also encodes twice 11 and 40. The code in Sonnet 22 uses every line along its acrostic. The first 2 and last 2 lines use the letters YS and PT. YS is pronounced Is. The Cairo monogram is derived from the first 2 letters of Christos. The same is being done here, only it's the pronunciation of the first 2 letters of Isis, or Jesus. The Latin letters PT in Greek are Rho Tau, or RT, again initials for Rosy Cross. That leaves this column of letters, a combination of gematria values and words which are read upwards. The first letters are A, B, A. Very simply, A is equal to 1, B equals 2, and A is 1. ABA is 121 or 121, which we just saw is a twice 11 number, 11 times 11. Continuing upwards, the words are who is. Dutch was spoken in England at the time, and Dutch words appear in Shakespeare. In Dutch, who is pronounced vies, which sounds like V's, meaning V plural. De Vere sometimes signed his name double V, and that's what vies is implying here. Next, it reads 4T. Edward de Vere is the 4th T, and his number is 40. And last are the letters B and M. In Latin, B is equal to 2. Again, D uses Hebrew and Greek, and I think here the large letter M serves as a hint to use the larger Hebrew and Greek gematria value of 40. So B is 2 and M is 40 for a total of 42. The repeated count value of 42 is equivalent to 2 T's, and there's an acrostic in between chapters 40 and 42 of the book of Job that reads similar to a palindrome. In classical Greek, H or eta was sometimes used for the vowel E. Applying this, the word the can be pronounced T. So reading downwards, the acrostic is 2T, 4T, 4E Vere, and reading upwards, it's E Vere, 4T, 4T2. It's telling us that E Vere is 2T and 4T, or 42 and 40, 40 being a homophone of 4T, and 42 corresponding with 2 T's. So the acrostic along Sonnet 22, or 11 plus 11, has 2 letters that, when pronounced, are the first 2 letters of Isis. They're the Rho Tau initials for Rosy Cross, and letters equivalent to twice 11, 4T, and 42, which is equal to 2 T's, or twin T's. More on that later. The acrostic also has the words who is, or in Dutch, vies, suggesting V's plural or double V. 2T, 4T, twice 11, and double V stand for Edward de Vere. So again we have codes for God, Vere, Rosy Cross. And it looks like there may be one more code. Following Is, the pronunciation of the first 2 letters of Isis, there are 22 letters, then Me, M-E. The Latin gematria value of M is 12 and E is 5, totaling 17, De Vere's Earl number. After that is God's name, I am. Twice 11, 17, I am. Now, in addition to being equivalent to twice 11, Sonnet 22 and 121 share something else in common. They both use God's name. In Sonnet 121, we get the phrase, I am that I am, which is the name God tells Moses when asked, Who do I say has sent me? As far as I know, during this time, there were only two people who used the name of God in their writings, Edward de Vere in a letter to his father-in-law, Lord Burleigh, and William Shakespeare, here in Sonnet 121. In an earlier video, I showed how the letters spelling I am are equal to 22. Using the Latin alphabet, I is equal to 9, A is equal to 1, and M is 12. I am equaling twice 11 seems an interesting coincidence. From the first time I mentioned the twice 11 brethren acrostic, I suggested that twice 11 might be referring to a cross. In Hebrew, the 22nd letter is T or tau, in Latin, the 22nd letter is Y, and in Greek, it's X. Each of these letters are in the shape of a crucifix, and I thought this was a decent argument for twice 11 being a cross, making twice 11 brethren translate to something along the lines of brethren of the cross. Notice how that I am is typeset perfectly on line 19 from the top and bottom of the page. The gematria value of 19 is T or tau, meaning a cross, which represents God. Now the name of God appearing in both twice 11 sonnets got me thinking, since the letters spelling I am are equal to 22, instead of a cross, could twice 11 be referring to God? God says his name twice in Exodus 3:14, the first time as I am that I am, and the second time after 22 words he refers to himself as I am. Notice how in the King James they begin the page with the name of God. None of the other Bibles of the day that I looked at are printed this way, and in those Bibles I am begins after 21 words, not 22. Although I am equaling 22 is interesting, it doesn't necessarily mean that's what twice 11 is. Like I've explained before, the whole twice 11 thing began when I was looking at the last pages of the book of Job. Something about it caught my eye and I read it as an acrostic. The King James Version uses many of the same verse numbers and words as the Bishop's Bible, but I wondered if there were places in the King James where certain words were typeset so they could be read as acrostic messages. We've opened the Bible to the beginning of Job chapter 40. Remember, Edward de Vere is 4T. The first thing to appear on the page are the letters spelling ONS, which is an anagram of the word sun. Printed beneath it is cornerstone. In the construction of a foundation, the foundation or cornerstone is the first stone set. For Masons, the cornerstone symbolizes sturdiness, morality, and truth, and the task of the initiate is to build a spiritual temple in the heart, based on the symbolic strength of the cornerstone. In the Bible, Jesus is the rejected son who becomes the foundation or cornerstone. Edward de Vere's Earl number was 17, and when we look down the column at the words above and below the number for verse 17, they read search and letters hyphenated from the previous line spelling N-E-D, pronounced Ned. Ned has been used as a short form for Edward since the 14th century. Let's see what the other verse 17s have to say. The next verse number 17 is here, printed beneath the words, her labor. In the Bishop's Bible, her labor is also used in verse 17. I thought that because in the Geneva male gender is used here, that they switched it in the King James, but later I found out that they used the female gender in the Bishop's. What's different, though, is that none of the other Bibles I checked appear with her labor printed over the number 17. Alright, now this section of verses is talking about a mother who's hardened against her children and treats them as though they weren't hers, and she's forgotten where she's put them. Some believe Queen Elizabeth had children who she never acknowledged and had been taken and raised by other families. The mother referred to here is an ostrich, and there are many portraits, I found at least half a dozen in no time, with Elizabeth holding a fan of ostrich feathers, which I read acted as a symbol of England's growth as a sea power. Something else I found interesting is the way the page has been typeset. It begins with 4T and the word king printed below it. Beneath king is the word fourth. In classical Greek, H was sometimes used for the long vowel E. Fourth can be read as 4T. After king 4T, there are 34 lines to her labor. 34 is twice 17. Printed beneath her labor is the number for verse 17. Then from 17 there are 22 or twice 11 lines to the end of the column. Keep counting and it's a total of 40 lines to the end of the chapter. That's 40 lines from verse number 17 till the chapter ends, right before chapter 40, which is then 40 lines to the end of the page. And if you add the verse reference numbers, they total 22. The page seems to be typeset to twice 11, 17, and 40. Turn the page and Job 40 continues. Verse 17 begins on line 12. Personally, I believe 12 is a cipher for 40 or 4T, which I explained in other videos. Printed beneath the number 17 are the letters DAR and beneath that TO. TODAR is a homophone of Tudor. The remaining letters spelling the and gether might be referring to the crown. There was a time when G and K were both represented by the letter C. If we do that here, we have Kether spelled with a C, which is pronounced as a K. In Hebrew, Keter, also known as Kether, means crown. So altogether, this verse 17 acrostic might be read as the Tudor crown. The next verse 17 is on line twice 11 or 22. Printed above are the words no heir, which is a homophone of heir, H-E-I-R. An heir is a person who inherits or is entitled to inherit the rank, title, or position of another. Referring to someone as no heir is saying that they're illegitimate or a bastard. Like the previous page, there's also some interesting typesetting. No heir is printed on line 40 from the end of the page, and when you count the number of T's from the end of the page, the fourth T follows the number 17. No heir, 1740. On a side note, in the same column, 3 times in the Bible the words shake and spear are printed in close proximity to each other. One of them is here in verse 29 on line 55, or VV using the Roman numeral for 5. It begins with 40 characters followed by 17 comprised of the words shaking of a spear. The last verse 17 is on the same page as the twice 11 brethren acrostic and begins on line 44, which is twice 11 twice, or twice 22. Printed beneath the number 17, it reads, of days. I'm really not sure if there's anything to figure out here, but I did learn that in Latin, deis, pronounced des, is the ablative plural of deus and means gods or the gods. Again, I don't know if there's anything to this or if we're supposed to pronounce of days as of days, meaning that 17 is of the gods. This could mean that 17 has accomplished something or is himself worthy of veneration. And there's the direct meaning that 17 is divine or of divine lineage. There's an hypothesis that Edward de Vere was an illegitimate son of Queen Elizabeth's. Even though the bishops and King James versions of the Bible have similar verse numbers and information, did someone notice that within these verses certain words could function as details about the life of Edward de Vere, and typeset those words so they can be read acrostically? Elizabeth is often portrayed as holding a fan of ostrich feathers, and her labor is referring to a mother ostrich who forgets where she's left her children and treats them as though they weren't hers. If the Prince Tudor theory is true, did someone pick up on the coincidences and have these certain words typeset above and below Oxford's Earl number? Remember, these pages begin with an anagram of the word son followed by cornerstone, and the cornerstone was the rejected son. Something else about the cornerstone acrostic is that it's printed over the number 7, which coincidentally would have been de Vere's king number as Edward VII. There's also the 4T king acrostic at the start of the next page. The word liking was hyphenated, causing king to appear beneath 4T. Now there's something else I want to show you that I found in the Bible that happens to turn up in another Shakespeare work. Looking again at the Search 17 Ned or Edward acrostic, printed beneath it is the word doors. The gematria values of the letters NED happen to total 22. If we add that to the word doors printed below it, it's 22 doors. 22 doors is a play on twin T Tudors or twin T Tudors. Double tau initials like on the cover of the Sonnets are twin T's. And a little further up in the same column there's one more example of the word doors with the verse number 8 printed over it. With the Latin alphabet, the 8th letter is H. Could a hint be that an H is comprised of 2 letter T's? You see, once the verse begins, there are 22 characters followed by doors on the next line. Again, 22 doors. These could be coincidences, but there's another place where this name has been hidden, and it's pretty incredible. We're looking at Shakespeare's first folio, page 399 of the play Cymbeline, erroneously misprinted as 993. A very obvious misprint. Cymbeline 993 is heavily encoded, which it should be because it's the last page of the text. Here in the second column, beginning on line 11, reading downwards, is an acrostic spelling TWO. 2 on line 11 is twice 11. On those same lines reading upwards along the telestic on the right side are the letters TEN. 2 on the left side times 10 on the right is 20. The gematria value of 20 is equal to the letter V, which may be hinting at an initial for Vere, and 2 plus 10 is 12. Like I've said many times before, I believe 12 is a cipher for 4T. But I think there's something a lot more interesting going on. We got the 2 acrostic beginning on line 11 from the top of the column by reading downwards. We got the 10 telestic on the right side by reading upwards. Continuing upwards, the next line is the 22nd from the end of the column. And beginning in the 22nd line is a rebus in the shape of a Mason square. The letters inside the L-shaped Mason square rebus spell Tudors. The acrostic and telestic read 2 and 10. Again, 2 times 10 is 20. Then above, on line 22 from the end of the column, is a rebus spelling Tudors. And 20 Tudors is a homophone of twin T Tudors. Now this is on the last page of the folio. On the first page of the folio is the To the Reader poem. Earlier in the video, I showed how the 22nd word of the poem leads to a spelling of 22. To out, read together as T-O-O-U-T, is pronounced two in French. Du, or deux in French, is the number for two. These are homophones for two and two. Now check this out. Using the same letters, there's a rebus in the shape of a cross spelling the word Tudor. And along the poem's acrostic, there's TWO followed by HB. The gematria value of H is equal to 8 and B is equal to 2 for a total of 10. 2 times 10 is 20. It's similar to the code found on the last page of Cymbeline. On line 11 from the start of the column, there's an acrostic and telestic spelling 2 and 10. 2 times 10 is 20. Above that, on line 22 from the end of the column, there's an L-shaped Mason square rebus spelling tutors. 20 or 20 tutors. With the poem along the acrostic, 2 times 10 is 20. Count 22 words and we get a T or a cross-shaped rebus spelling Tudor. Again, 20 Tudor or 20 Tudor. Notice that the Tudor rebuses are both in the shape of Masonic squares. There's the L-shaped and in the display case of Masonic items owned by George Washington, the T-shaped square. This is pretty amazing. The first and last pages of the folio have the same code and use the same method. 2 and 10 multiplied to get 20, and the number 22 is counted to find a rebus in the shape of a Masonic symbol, each conveying the same message. This was done by design. And it started here. So are these coincidences, or were they typeset so that both examples of the word doors are preceded by something equivalent to 22, spelling 22 doors, a homophone of 20 tutors? Those rebuses on the first and last pages of the folio were found starting with the 22nd word and the 22nd line. One of them uses homophones in French for the numbers 2, 2, or 22. Now, just like how the first two letters of Christos are used to compose a Cairo symbol, notice how the number 2 gives us the first two letters of Tudor. Is this what the whole twice 11 thing is about? Is 22 simply a short form of 20 Tudor? I don't know, but I can tell you that both 20 Tudor and twice 11 brethren were first found here, in the last pages of the book of Job when you open to chapter 40. They may be coincidences, but these acrostics led to the codes I've been showing, like Sonnet 22 and 121, and the first and last pages of the folio. So what about the rest of Job? He was a man who, despite great tragedy, kept his faith in God. Are the verse 17 and other acrostics telling us something about the tragedy of Edward de Vere? Was he the rejected son who becomes the cornerstone? Was he the labor of a mother with ostrich feathers who didn't know where she left him and treated him like he wasn't hers? An illegitimate tutor? I don't know if they're authentic codes, but I think it's an interesting coincidence that after we're told to search 17 Ned or Edward, that these other verse 17 acrostics read like a Prince Tudor theory. I compared those acrostics I went over with a few other Bibles of the day, and the only one that seemed close was in the 1568 Bishops. Twice is printed over the word and, which is printed over the words his brethren. In the 1602 Bishops, which served as the base text for the King James, the words twice 11 brethren are scattered across two columns. Now, does the 1568 Bishops invalidate the twice 11 brethren acrostic in the King James? Or could it have served as inspiration? The thing is, I've seen too many codes based on twice 11 to doubt that it's a legitimate concept, like Sonnets 22 and 121, with twice 11th on line 11, and the twin T Tudor codes that use the number 22 in the To the Reader poem and last page of the Folio, a text that has the word brethren printed 22 times in its plays. Now, in the other Bibles I checked, the name Job appears with a colon, and 17 words later is the word 40. However, in the King James, Job is printed as an acrostic, 22 lines after twice 11 brethren, also with 40 being the 17th word. Again, did someone pick up on certain words that were already in earlier Bibles and have that information typeset so it would appear along the acrostic? And is someone trying to tell us that Edward de Vere was like Job? You see, there's something about the name Job I think they could have figured out. There are codes where the letter I is given a value of 1 because it's a Roman numeral 1. In Latin, Job is spelled I-O-B because there's no J in the Latin alphabet. Using the method of assigning I as 1 because it resembles the Roman numeral 1, and equating the remaining letters with their standard gematria values, Job is equal to 17. Again, with gematria, there's a relationship and similarity between things of equal value, and I think someone could have realized that Oxford's Earl number and the name Job were the same. Now, as far as these opening pages of the Bible go, I believe these were done by design, typeset to, I'll call it Rosicrucian specifications. The same with the frontispiece, with 3 examples of 1740, one of them encoded in between the twin T's, an offset OT rose cross. That's also appeared in the Sonnets dedication grid as a rebus comprised of veers stemming from the R or 17 in the word 40. And I don't think it's a coincidence that there's a God Vere Rosy Cross acrostic in Sonnet 22. Or that Sonnet 121 has twice 11th spelled out on line 11, with an anagram for 11th beginning with the 11th letter after twice. This was most definitely done by design. And the first and last pages of the Folio, Alpha and Omega. 22 words into the poem, 2 homophones for 2 and 2 that are part of a Masonic-shaped rebus spelling Tudor. And on the last page, line 22 from the end, another rebus spelling Tudors. Both use the same methods with the 210 acrostics, resulting in twin T Tudor, and I think resolves the mystery of the poem's TWOHB acrostic. I also think the unnecessary lowercase w is used as a hint to look here, leading to a 17-character code that, when translated, reads, with nature all double V, referring to the engraving on the opposite page, the force that produced William Shakespeare. And I hope I finally resolved any doubts about the message hidden in the marked sonnet numbers and turnover or, as I believe the cross was in the sonnet numbers 9 and 10. I had it as KI spelling key, but for those who insisted that wasn't correct, the cross is found by adding the numbers to get 19, equivalent to the letter T. Let there be light, rosy cross. I still think the KI gematria values work when pronouncing the letters right to left to get Kiro or Christos, because the "and there was light" part of the verse being referred to in Genesis 1:3 is Christ. We can disagree, that's okay. At least the cross has been found, and now you know why those dots are there. If you've made it through the video, I appreciate you taking the time. It was a lot to go over. I'll have another one out when I can, and what can I say? I think there's more to this than Shakespeare. Are the acrostics printed around Job chapter 40 legit? I don't know, but that's where I first found twice 11 and twin T Tudors. I don't know if there was a group called the twice 11 Brethren, but I can tell you that 22, like 1740, is used in a lot of codes and is a homophone of twin T and the first 2 letters of Tudor, and that 20 times 2 is 40, the number we associate with Edward de Vere. Thanks for watching.